week of snow and ice around here. The snow's finally melted. So it's time to go exercise some of the fleet. You know, that's the downside of owning these old cars. You can't just let them sit all winter long without giving them a good exercise. So I'm going to begin by taking my daughter's W108 280 SE out for a spin and just get that thing warmed up. One thing I do on all my cars is I put battery tenders on the batteries when they're sitting. You have to do this because if you let that battery drain down, you're going to ruin the battery, and in some of the newer cars you're going to have other problems related to some of the electrics. All right, this has been sitting about 30 days, so let's see how it fires up. Oh, it's a little cold. Listen to that little sweet 6-cylinder fire up. Before I take it out on the road and put the power to it, I'm just going to drive it gently around the farm here for a few minutes until I see the temperature start coming off the peg. And this will kind of exercise the transmission a little bit and the brakes. Hey, you notice the crooked hood star? Oh man, that means I'm gonna have to stop. You know, you can't drive a Mercedes-Benz with a crooked hood star. We gotta make sure this hood star is perfectly straight. We don't like, you know, any deviation. Okay, let's stand back and do a double check. Let's take it to a lower angle. All right, that works. Okay, I think we're ready to go now. I'm going to back it up a little bit. We'll just exercise the reverse in this thing. For the first 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to be real gentle. One of the things you do not want to do is just start the car up and let it run in the shop. You actually want to get out and drive it at least 15 minutes, or at least until it comes up to operating temperature, because if you don't do that, you might just build up some condensation inside the engine or even inside the exhaust system, and that's just going to lead to rust and corrosion. You know, don't just start the engine up and let it run for a few minutes. Pull the car out and take it for a nice spin. I know if you've got 5 or 6 cars, it takes a while, but if you neglect this, you're going to have a lot worse problems come spring. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera off for a couple minutes. I'm going to drive around here a little bit, and then I'll come back and we'll get out on the road. Once I see the engine temperature gauge coming off the peg, the transmission's a little stiff. You got that stiff shift. Okay. On these older transmissions, you can see why sometimes you do want to get out and exercise that transmission. We're going to just do a circuit here that's going to take us about 15 minutes of driving time, and then we'll pull it back in. We're going to check hot engine oil pressure and temperature and just take a good look for any leaks before we put it back away for the next month. Take a look at that engine oil temperature. It came right up to 175 degrees. Now that's a real good sign. If there's a long delay in that engine temperature coming up, it usually means you have a bad thermostat. And those thermostats, by the way, do go bad from lack of use. During this monthly exercise routine, I do try to exercise the brakes at least 15 to 20 times. I'm not reefing on them. I'm just lightly bringing the car to a stop, getting off them, and then doing it again, making sure the car is not pulling to the left or right. And that gives me a good indication. Now after it's warmed up, I can put the juice to it. Boil that carbon out. few more to do. I don't know if I'm going to get any more done today. I don't like to do this in the rain. But we'll pull this one aside, and I'll bring out my 560 SEC for its exercise routine. You know, you'll have to admit that Kaya's car is a sweet little runner. You know, if you do use battery tenders, one of the things you have to remember is to get these things disconnected before you pull the car out of storage. Now, if you haven't seen my 560 SEC before, you're going to be impressed. This is one beautiful car, extremely comfortable to drive. Only has 102,000 original miles. Oh, listen to that big V8 roar to life. We got the shoulder harness extended out for us here. I'll get that put on and we'll go out and put it through its initial warm-up. I'm just going to sit here and let it idle for a little bit, and then we're going to back it up. I'm going to just ease on the brake, pull it down. I'm going to put it into gear here. Go ahead and pull forward. And then ease the brake on. We're going to put it right back in reverse. And each time I do this, I'm going to go a little further and a little faster each time, applying a little more brake. Depending upon how long the car's set, you may feel a little roughness in the brakes. That's usually from a little surface rust that can form on the rotors, even if you have it in storage. You know, it's not a problem if you have heated storage, but if you have it in a metal building, be prepared for some problems with condensation corrosion, and that usually shows up on the brake rotors and also on the exhaust system. Okay, it's just coming off the peg now. I'm going to take it around the farm here one little trip, and then we'll pull it out on the road. Notice the lack of hood star in this 560 SEC. You don't have to worry about that problem. But I tell you, this thing gets up and goes. And it gets with the program right away with that 560 V8. Okay, I'm going to pull out onto the main road here, and I'll take another check on my temperature. Look at that. It's come right up off the peg, approaching 60 degrees. So we're ready to go. But I won't floor it, not this first trip around here. We'll just take it out and let it go through the gears smoothly and work those brakes like we did in the 280 SE before we really give it the gas. This car is so smooth and so quiet. One of the things you will notice when you first start up these cars, especially if it's been real cold and damp like it has here the past couple of weeks, is you'll get quite a bit of steam coming out of the exhaust. And that's a real good reason why you want to get out on the road and really warm these things up. Because if you just start it up and let it run for a little bit, all that condensation will collect in the mufflers and in the exhaust pipes. And that's one of the reasons why exhaust systems rust out on these old cars. And now we'll start taking it through its braking routine. Just accelerating up. And then slowly braking to a stop. Accelerating up. Slowly braking to a stop. Now I'm not reefing on the brakes here. You want to kind of let that rust rub off those rotors before you start reefing on those calipers. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do this 15 to 20 times before I get it back to the shop. And you'll want to have a few of these cycles come to a complete stop. And each time I can accelerate a little more quickly, as I'm going to look down here at the engine temperature gauge, and sure enough, it's gone over 80. So we're ready to give it a little more throttle here. Okay, oil pressure looks good. Look at that. Hot idle oil pressure is over 2. Temperature's almost up to 85. Perfect. All right. Now we'll get a little of the carbon out. Check to make sure the kick down switch is working. Sure enough, it is. Okay. The old baby's looking pretty good here and feeling really nice. Just take a look at the interior in this thing. Okay, that's car number 2. We have a few more to do, but I don't think we're going to do any more today. Hopefully in a future video, when I pull some of my other cars out, take them for a little exercise, I'll let you follow along. But one of the things I do before I put them away as I stop, let them sit for a little bit and just check for any leaks. You know, I'm really proud of this car. Just take a look at the interior, that beautiful navy blue leather, and look at the dash. All that burl wood, there's not a crack in it. I think that'll give you a really good idea of why this car right here is one of my all-time favorites. Okay, I'm back at the 280 SE, and I've given it some time to sit here, and I'm looking underneath for any signs of any coolant, oil, or transmission fluid leaks. Everything is really good, and before I put it away, I'm just going to look in the engine compartment here and see if I see anything amiss. I see a little bit of oil right here. We may have to tighten that breather tube, but this engine could use a little detail, but I don't see anything that would indicate any kind of a bad leak. You want to kind of look around the water pump. I see a little bit of moisture evidence there, but I'm not seeing any leaks. I'm just going to check the tension here on the alternator belt, the viscous fan, to make sure it's tight, not sloppy. Okay, I'm going to fire this thing up because I want you to hear this up close. This is a really sweet sounding straight 6 fuel injected engine. Okay, it's time to put Mary Jane away for another month. Say goodnight, Mary Jane.